Brace yourself for a descent into the shadows of the city of brotherly love, where each story unveils a new horror lurking in its haunted depths. Climb into bed. Get comfortable. And prepare for the clutches of sleep paralysis to ensnare your waking moments. Descend into a realm of consciousness where nightmares come alive. Welcome to the Paralysis Tales. Most people don't remember much from when they were really young, including me. But I do recall one specific memory in particular from when I was just a baby. I believe this moment stuck with me because I think this was the first instance I experienced true, genuine fear. My parents and I lived in the noisy, bustling streets of Philadelphia. All hours of the night, the sounds of trains, traffic, and sirens kept me awake. Even as a baby I remember laying restless, looking up at the little toys on my mobile. My parents worked random hours and on occasion, they would both have to work nights. When this happened, my parents would bring me to my grandmother's house for the night, which I loved. Her house was on a more quiet street and was full of fun-looking toys from her childhood. It was my grandmother's house where I remember sleep coming so easily to me. But one night in particular, something kept me awake. And I've had issues sleeping ever since. My grandma had just laid me gently into my crib, kissing me goodnight. She turned off the light and closed the door. Since I didn't have a mobile there, I just would stare at the strange patterns on the ceiling until they got blurry with sleep. I closed my eyes, when I heard a strange cracking sound above me. I opened my eyes, but didn't see anything. My eyes slowly started closing until I saw something move on the ceiling. I thought it looked like a spider. And then it got bigger. Even though I was a baby, I could tell something wasn't right. As I watched this dark figure grow bigger, I realized it wasn't a spider. It was a hand. A black, bony hand. Then, another hand appeared. These two hands stretched wide towards me. They slowly reached down from the ceiling and long, bony arms trailed behind as they came closer. These were not like any hands I had ever seen. Not like the safe and gentle hands of Mom and Dad. As the outstretched arms and bony fingers came closer and closer, I just stared at them, confused and scared. They were so unnatural looking. It seemed the arms would go on forever, as the hands approached my crib, now able to touch me. I felt the cold, stiff appendages wrap around my little body. But they didn't pick me up, they didn't grip me tighter, they just held me. Suddenly, a loud shrieking sound filled my tiny ears. It was like a voice trying to say something, but I couldn't understand. The scratching and unnatural shriek stopped. Then, just as slowly as they came, the arms, then hands, retracted back into the ceiling, still reaching. As the last bony fingers disappeared, silence filled the room. To this day, I can't shake that feeling of those bony fingers gripping me from the shadows of the night. Because of that night, I've never known a good night's sleep.
When I was growing up in Philadelphia, I remember sitting in the back seat of my mom's old Camry as we navigated the streets of the city. We took the same roads every day to my daycare, so I recognized a lot of the buildings we passed. I remember specifically we would always stop at a stop sign right near my favorite pizza place. My mom would always listen to a smooth jazz radio station while it played with whatever toy held my attention that day. Usually the ride was never out of the ordinary. But one day in particular remains etched in my memory. My mom pulled up to the stop sign just as she always would. Then, out of nowhere, a guy appeared at the car window. His face hidden behind a dirty beard. I could feel the chill crawling up my spine as he yanked the door open. Panic set in. My mom screamed. And before I knew it, she was thrown out onto the road. The creepy, dirty guy jumped into the driver's seat and started driving. He drove insanely fast down the Philly roads. I was so scared that I couldn't move or scream. I just sat there. After what felt like forever, I could hear the sirens in the distance, but they felt so far away. It was just me and this person I didn't know speeding through the city. Then, it all came crashing to a halt when the car smashed into a telephone pole. Luckily, my car seat prevented me from flying forward. But my neck jerked when my seatbelt protected me. I looked up, and there he was, staring right at me. He was smiling and laughing, like something out of a horror movie. His grin sent shivers down my spine. I was frozen, unable to look away. Suddenly, he let out a loud scream right in my face. Now I started crying and shouting for my mom to help me. The man laughed one more time before opening the door and bolting. The police arrived shortly after, tackling him to the ground. Some other officers pulled me from the car and into the arms of my sobbing mom. In the chaos of that morning, I learned that even the most familiar roads can lead to the unknown. The city I thought I knew had shown me its darker side, and that toothless smile haunts my dreams to this day.
I grew up with a big, Italian family in Philadelphia. In our family, there was this unspoken rule about sticking together, a bond that made us feel invincible. But every family has its black sheep, and for us, that was my aunt. She was a wanderer, the one who craved something beyond the safety of our family and city. Her stories were like adventures, and as kids, my sister and I hung on to every word. But with time, her tales took a sinister turn. The vibrant stories that once painted pictures of excitement morphed into darker realities as my aunt slowly succumbed to the clutches of addiction. Her visits became sporadic until, one year, she returned home for good, no longer having the means to travel. The free-spirited aunt we remembered had turned into a bundle of nerves, constantly fighting with my mom over money. She sought loans from my parents, who were struggling with their own financial burdens at the time. One day when I was home alone with my sister, I got a panicked call from my dad. "Lock all the doors and don't let your aunt in," he said. I followed his order, and moments later, the front door rattled violently. Peering through the window, I saw my aunt, her face contorted with anger, demanding to be let in. She looked like a shell of what she once was. I stood my ground, and told her I couldn't let her in. Her demeanor shifted from anger to desperation, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded and continued to bang at the door. I remained frozen, unsure of what to do. Till the banging ceased, and when I looked again, she was gone. That night, my parents delivered the devastating news. My aunt was dead. After leaving our house, she returned to her apartment and fell victim to an accidental overdose of pills and alcohol. That night, my mom unraveled the story of my aunt's descent into a dark world of addiction. A few days later, my parents were facing the grim task of cleaning out her apartment. As I ventured into the bedroom alone, I could see the mark on the floor where her body had been discovered. The room was cluttered with junk and a bunch of empty vodka bottles. Before I could decide where to start, the radio alarm clock on the bedside table sprang to life, shattering the eerie silence. I was startled by the unsettling sound of loud static. I moved to turn it off when a voice emerged, barely audible. However, I could make out one word: closet. Chilled to the bone, I slowly approached the closet. I looked up and my eyes fixed on a black shoebox perched on the top shelf. I retrieved it and discovered it was full of gold and silver jewelry. Excitement gripped me as I shared my find with my parents. In the following days, they took what I found to a jeweler, and the compensation they received for it put an end to their financial issues. The jewelry, once hers, now became an unexpected form of relief for our family. The chilling encounter with the radio seemed always stuck in my mind, a haunting whisper from beyond. While it could be coincidence, I can't shake the feeling that my aunt, in her otherworldly presence, had guided me to the box of jewelry as a final apology for the turbulent last chapters of her final years with our family.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying your descent into the Paralysis Tales, hit subscribe to hear more chilling stories. If you're brave enough to share your own nightmares, subscribers can submit their terrifying stories to the email in the description below. Sleep tight!